Hi, I'm Donald Moffat.
And I'm Heather Menzies. Logan's Run will not be on tonight.
But stay tuned for the Charlie Brown special and the Fat Albert Halloween special.
And we'll be back next Monday night.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
This portrait of Jean Grey, the Phoenix, is one of the ones I did for a series of single frame mock-up kind of covers for the Marvelocity book, where my concept was it would work like an accordion. When you open up the book, getting past the initial Captain America cover, you would fold it out and you get Iron Man and character after character after character, and it allowed me then to do multiple Marvel character portraits. Phoenix being one of the most primary Marvel concepts, because her storyline back in 1980, the invention of that character, that maturation of Jean Grey into the Phoenix, was one of the best storylines in the history of comics and stands out as one of the most important female superheroes.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I'm happy to welcome Brian Thies to Word Balloon. How you doing, Brian?
Good. How are you, John?
Am I saying your last name right, Brian?
You said it absolutely perfect.
Excellent. Well, I watched your video on your Kickstarter campaign, and very excited to talk to you about this sci-fi epic you got coming. And everyone should jump on board on this. I'm really excited about it for you. Sanvean, is that how we're saying it? Sanvean, thank you.
Yep.
All right, there we go. Sanvean, this 100 pages of story, is that the plan?
75 pages of story and 25 pages of extra content, concept stuff, other things like that.
Very cool, man. No, it's a hell of a sci-fi epic, and I'm gonna bring it up. Sorry, kids, hold on one second. Let's get it. Well, there you go. There's the video, and you're halfway, a little over halfway to your goal. Get it?
Yep.
24 days left. There, that's a great image. And I love these interiors. And also, Brent, I got to tell you, I am a sucker for good black and white art. And I love that as we get to the interior page. Look at that. Really, really nice. I think it's great. Why did you choose to do black and white for this book?
I've actually always wanted to do a black and white book. And it's something that when people would collect my pages, and would always comment, it's like, why don't they just do a black and white version of your book? Your inks are, so lovely, and we'd love to see that. And so I was just like, yeah, why don't I do that? And then I've also been reading a lot of manga lately, and that just, it translates really well. If the story is solid, then it work.
Say again.
It all works when, if you got if the story is strong and the art's strong, and for me, strong art can stand alone on itself with being black and white. And so sometimes color, I think, it can only enhance, but I think sometimes that it's nice just to see it in that pure black and white format.
I agree with you, man. And no, I even think I prefer old Hollywood black and white a lot of times. And I know the great Orson Welles even said color can almost subconsciously get in the way of the storytelling. It's almost too pretty.
Totally. Yeah. It depends. It depends on the story you're telling, but yeah, I think as far as comics goes, that there's no direct form of communicating than through word balloons and black and white art.
I'm with you, man. So give us the 10-cent pitch on Sanvean. What is this story about?
Quickest elevator pitch would be X-Files meets Metal Gear Solid. It's basically if a UFO came down to Earth and was retrieved, it was retrieved, and technology was advanced, and you go 20 years beyond that, how would the world look differently? How would that affect humanity? So on and on.
little bit of corporate espionage maybe in this, along with the sci-fi
Quite a
elements?
quite a bit. I actually took quite a bit from contemporary UFO lore, and that's some of the subject matter I've been interested in since I was a kid. I don't know why. It's just ever since I was a kid, it's been something I've been into, and so I went into a lot of this different stories that have been out there, and kind of there's little homages to different events that have they happen, and so I was like, what if what if there were different, aerospace corporations or government, organizations all going after the same type of technology, and just kind of have it's like a tech war, but it's tech as in UFO tech rather than computer tech. So it's I just thought it'd be really interesting to kind of mess with that idea, but also the idea of normal, because there's a lot of paranormal aspects along with the UFO phenomena. So it just kind of lent itself to the storytelling in itself, and I just had to kind of put some characters in there and let it all happen.
That's great, man. I imagine and again with COVID, sometimes you forget how long ago it was, but that fantastic footage of that UFO flying that we saw in the last couple of years, where it's like, oh my God, what is that thing?
Yeah, that was 2017 when the New York Times broke that story, and that was something like those events. There's like little bits of it out there that I was following for many years before that. So I never thought that it would ever get to this level as someone that's kind of a fan of this kind of that genre, and to see it kind of get as blown open as it has, I was just like, wow, this is pretty cool.
It was insane. Absolutely, man. We'll get into it more, but I want to acknowledge right away, you've got a comment from someone who I think is a mutual fan of both of us. He's definitely a Patreon supporter of mine. That's Mark. Love your manga style of art. We'll be sure to back this. He loved your work on Winter Soldier. We'll talk about that. He's also lucky enough to own the original art to a Captain Harlock sketch.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.
That's excellent, man. No, that's really cool to hear. Were you said you've had this fascination with UFOs back as a kid, and forgive me about the timing. So were you an Art Bell or George Norrie listener?
Oh yeah. Coast to coast, yeah, for sure. No, that was actually like, I don't know how much into the lore you are, but I remember I was 10 years old when it broke, but there was George Knapp from down in Las Vegas broke a story about Bob Lazar. And I remember it went viral. He was supposedly worked at Area 51 at a site called S4 and was working on reverse engineering flying saucers. And he broke the story. I remember it came out through local news syndicates. I saw it and I was just like, I was already into into UFOs before that, but I just was like transfixed by the story. I was like, what is this? And so I remember trying, back then there was no internet or anything like that. So it was looking for those weird specials on TBS or Fox. There's just whatever weird cable company would and so yeah, that was it. And then of course Coast to Coast was that was a fixation to sit and listen to that, and that was some of those episodes are definitely out there.
Oh God! Plus, now we got A&E with Ancient History Channel with Ancient Aliens. So, how many seasons of that? I'm an original Eric Von Däniken Chariots of the Gods.
Oh, nice.
Aware of that because I was a little kid. I was like 10 years old, I think, when the book came out, and the documentary with Rod Serling doing the narration and everything. So no, awesome. That stuff has fascinated me in passing, but certainly it's always kind of been in the back of pop culture and part of the mix of things. Plus, being an original Apollo kid, and that's why I would say, seriously, man, and this is a confession, and I think a lot of Word Balloon viewers and listeners are well aware. I think way too much about Star Trek, and I think one of the main reasons why is I was, watching those reruns. I was part of that first wave of syndication, and it didn't seem that far-fetched from where Apollo was in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah, sure.
300 years later, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? It's possible. We could go to that level. Spaceships could be that much more intricate and stuff. So that's great. I love it, man. It looks fantastic, and it's a first issue. So is is the plan to do more volumes of it?
Yeah, the plan is like I actually have about 2,000 pages of outline written for this, and then that wraps up this entire storyline. And then if it is successful and does well, then it can go on and on. Like ideally, I kind of wrote this out to be. I want this to be as successful as possible because I want this to be my job for the next 10 years. Like I want this is like I just planned really big. When 2020 hit, my dad was dying of cancer before the whole COVID thing. So I kind of knew he had about 6 months to live, and then COVID hit. And I broke up with my girlfriend long term. So there's like all these different things happened all at once. And I was just kind of just burnt out a little bit on doing the monthly, the kind of the work for hire stuff. And I was 41 years old, and I was, you know what, if I'm going to do something, like just all those different things kind of gave me some perspective. And I was like, I should kind of pursue this now. This would be a good time to do it. And so, yeah, father passed. I took a year off to kind of deal with that and handle his affairs, and kind of figured out there was a time when I was actually thinking about maybe I do comics anymore. And I almost thought about leaving entirely, this because it's a hard way to make a living. It's become harder and harder all the time. And that was part of the reason of me wanting to do this. Is like, if I'm going to have a successful career, I really want properties that I work on, and I want to be able to put the kind of care and attention into it. That only something comes with. It's that sense of ownership. It's like, it's great to work on Star Wars. It's great to work on Predator. It's great to work on Winter Soldier, but ultimately a corporation owns those properties. And that that sandbox is very small. I had an opportunity to write some stories back then, and all my ideas were rejected because it didn't fit in within the parameters of what they'd established. And I was like, I'm too creative. I need to do my own thing. I want to showcase my art the way I want to showcase it. I want to tell the types of stories I want to tell, and I remember what I always wanted to do, and that was to write and draw my own stuff. And so that's kind of where that led me to doing this book.
Fantastic, man. And truly kind of came to the same conclusions myself as I hit my 40s. And it's just that taking stock of, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your abilities while you still can? And also, congratulations too on channeling that rough time of both your father's passing, the pandemic, everything that everybody else was dealing with. And truly, it seems like there were two choices: to retreat, and no disrespect to anyone who really needed that time to just kind of process things, because it was a messed up time. But that said, a lot of other people are like, hey, this is let me take a chance. And again, I think the proof is there in terms of what you're drawing here, and it looks amazing, and I'm psyched to see the story presented and stuff. No, it's really great.
No, I'm excited to present it. I mean, there's so much more to it, and it goes, and the characters, individual stories, and how they all mix together. I mean, there's certain one of the actually cartoons that really inspired me, that's inspired this project, is Space Battleship Yamamoto, or Star Blazers, more commonly known here in the States. And
yeah,
I remember watching that as being 4 years old, and the storylines just captivated me. And as an adult, they released Star Blazers 2199, or Space Battleship Yamamoto 2199, and they kind of redid that initial storyline, and they did such a good job. But it's just the storytelling, the arcs, the character arcs, and how the big themes, the small themes, how they all play in. And I was just like, this is inspiring storytelling. It's like you cross all sorts of different ideas. It's kind of like Star Trek, and it's very inclusive. It's very mind opening, and it's just something that I want to bring back into storytelling in comics, especially American comics, where I kind of feel like it's I don't want to dig myself too much in a hole, but there's I feel like there's been an over branding in the whole inclusivity message, where it almost feels like it's pandering to the audience that they're trying to reach, and I don't feel like it's as effective as it could be if they just told good stories and included the characters they wanted to. And that's something that I feel like it's just, and I talk to people from all different backgrounds, and they agree with me. It's just like, stop trying to, make this like it's like you invented this. Like, these issues have been around. Like, tell it in a good story, make people think about it, make them feel about it. Don't tell them this is how you should think and feel. And so that's something that I want to introduce into my stories. It's just like, I understand we're in a whole period of paradoxical change right now, but it's like, as storytellers, we need to do it in a smart fashion. We need to, our audience is intelligent. They're not, they have feelings, they can think, they can, they want to be brought on a journey. It's not about telling them how to be.
I so agree with you, man, and also especially about the pandering, and like you said, just tell a good story. And yeah, I don't understand the reason why it's like, hey, just so you know, it's like, we know, it's fine.
Yeah, we get it. We're right there with you. But come on, like, just tell us a story.
Exactly. Tell us, and more importantly, tell us a good story. And man, I'll tell you, I've been ranting about, sadly, especially, I mean, Star Wars is, as you know, that's more science fiction fantasy than real science fiction. Star Trek, of late, man, I don't know who's writing it, but they certainly don't seem to know much about science fiction. And I think that's what's missing from a high concept standpoint, as a framework of telling a human story, or a personable story, if you will.
And I think a lot of that actually comes into, I mean, just from seeing how, like, Predator changed, even while I was working on it, even how much Star Wars changed while I was working on it, when Disney bought it, both those properties, actually, when I was working on them. You get the big corporate, heads in there, and your options, I mean, just like I said before, your options are very, very limited, and everything is run through a committee, and it's run through another committee, and through a whole viewership group to make sure that no one's ever going to be happy. So you can't tell those. One, I agree. I don't think they know what real science fiction is anymore. But two, I think that the reason why those original stories were so felt was that they were pushing the boundaries back then, and everything has just been recycled over and over again. And it's like, no, we got to push things in a new way, make people feel slightly uncomfortable, and make them think and feel something they weren't prepared to, but they need to. So and same thing with Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars for me was such a it was actually the thing that actually got me back into art, because when I was always doing art as a kid, but when I was in high school, I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna make a living at it. So I was gonna go into criminology. I was like,
Oh, wow.
it's really into like Law and Order and different shows like that when I was like in high school. So I was going to go into criminology, and I was like, I want to be a police detective. I want to help solve violent crimes.
Wow.
And I've always ridden motorcycles, and I was actually working as a undercover loss prevention agent for Nordstrom's at the time. And I remember I was hit actually by a drunk driver on the way to fill up my bike for gas before going to work the next day. And that kind of was laid up. I didn't break any bones, but I was laid up, and I had some time to think. And I was just like, I had a lap board because I still drew, and I just started drawing again. And I was like, you know what? This is what actually I'm really passionate about. Like, I was feeling like my heart felt empty when I was going to work doing the loss prevention stuff. And I really was just like, you know what? This isn't what I want to do. I want to do art. So that's what kind of changed my direction. And getting to the Star Wars aspect, this is when the Phantom Menace was just starting to show for the first time in the theaters. And say what you want about the Phantom Menace, but in the right frame of mind, that movie totally like opened my eyes to wanting to be creative again. It made me feel like a kid. I don't know if it was the drugs I was on or just the euphoria of still being alive, but it got me excited. It made me want to go out there and do that. So the Phantom Menace is actually part of the reason why I'm back here today doing what I'm doing.
Interesting.
Jar Jar
Wow.
Binks and all.
Exactly. What the hell, man? Of all the Star Wars movies, that's interesting. But that's cool. That's great. Tell us about your characters in this story. Your main characters.
And Sanvean?
Yeah.
Sorry? Okay.
Yes, in Sanvean, yes.
Let's see, how can I'm trying to think of how I can. Okay, so I'll start with the main character in this first storyline is Ariana, and she has kind of a mysterious past. It links back to the event, what I call in the book of when the saucer crashed and caused all this massive change. And now she's kind of has a little bit of a Wolverine, like early Wolverine vibe, where she's got kind of spotty memories and has certain abilities that don't make sense to her. She doesn't have any retractable claws or anything like that, but more conscious or psychic ability, telekinetic abilities. And she has taken in this orphan in this kind of underground racing circuit. So there's basically combustion style engines are being outlawed, or they're very expensive to run. There's this new technology that vehicles are being run on. And so, but there's these, with the rich and then the, different organized crime circuits, they have these underground kind of motorcycle races out in abandoned tracks and airports and things like that. And so she's kind of a part of this underground scene, and it's a way for her. Her past has been wiped, so she has no way of actually surviving in the real world. So she's just kind of a misfit with this other girl, and the younger girl's her mechanic, and then they've this a guy who's kind of their manager in a way, and so that's one aspect of it. And then there's the actual Sanvean character, who is part of the. So I just don't want to give too much away.
No problem.
Part of the original crash retrieval team that went to the initial crash, and he is a unknown survivor. Like it's not known. He technically doesn't exist, but I'll put it this way: there's a bit of the consciousness of part of the aliens living inside of him, fighting for control over his own body.
Sounds great, man. No, that's excellent. Very, very cool.
Please go ahead.
No,
there's some of the imagery you'll see. There's a little gray alien, and he's been named Kevin after my editor, Kevin Buckley.
Okay.
He's like, can we just name him Kevin? I was like, sure, absolutely. So so it's a little nod to him, but his story, I don't want to give too much away about him, but he's not what he seems. I'll put it that way.
Well, again,
but
man,
plays a very integral part in the story.
Okay. Again, looking at your art and everything, and also the concept, I love it, and really, man, no, you've got a great sophisticated style. Obviously manga influence, as you said. Are there specific artists you can name that were kind of your inspirations as you got into art?
Oh man, I don't know where to begin.
We got time for a laundry list. It's all right. Don't feel like you're.
Yeah. No. So, like American comics wise, it was initially it was used to.
Say it again, man.
Looked at or read was.
Unfortunately, you're cutting in and out, so we didn't hear the name. Start again.
Todd McFarlane.
Sure, absolutely.
So that was the first comic. It was a Spider-Man issue with Wolverine on the cover. So I remember my friend. There's a group of us that all drew, and we used to trade baseball cards. And then he brought a stack of comics one day. He's like, "You should really look at this." And so I looked at it, and I'm like, "Wait, people can draw and make a living?" And so that was kind of the initial first spark. But I watched the Christopher Reeve Superman films, and like I said, I've seen Star Blazer, but I had never really gotten into American comics. So Todd McFarlane, some of the like the Mark Silvestri Wolverine stuff.
Sure.
Some of that era, Rob Liefeld's work on X-Force. all that whole era was like really influential. Then when Image Comics started up, then my mind just exploded. I remember J. Lee's work on the Young Blood Strike Files. Like, I really loved the big, just gnarly, totally unrealistic, but just really graphic art. Let's see. Getting into some of the more manga stuff. Well, before I go there, let's just say when I started working in comics, I started my gateway was Stefano Gaudiano,
Sure.
and he went out to I was working on a solo, not solo, but I was working with on an independent book with a friend of mine that we were trying to get off the ground. And a good friend of his was Ed Brubaker. And Ed Brubaker looked at my work and he's like, "You've got a lot of talent, but I want to have you talk to my inker, Stefano, and they're working on, I think, Daredevil at the time."
Okay.
And so I went out to Stefano's place. He's another local guy. And I showed him my work and we started talking. And he had a book of Alberto Breccia. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he does a lot of really, really nice black and white, strong shadow, light shadow, chiaroscuro type stuff. And I was just like, my heart just opened up and I was just like, I'm in love. This guy's amazing. So that had a huge influence. You see that a lot in my early Star Wars work, and even into Predator. And so I had to mention him. But getting into the manga stuff, like, there's actually a few guys that, I mean, of course, there's Otomo, Akira was a huge. I've read the whole series. That was a huge.
Sure.
I mean, I saw the anime first, but I read the whole series. So I've got to reference my bookshelf here real quick.
By all means, that's awesome, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, of course, Shiro. Sorry, it's like my mind just went blank all of a sudden.
All good, man. Don't sweat it.
Inio Asano, there's a series that he did recently called, I mean, he's really known for Goodnight Poon Poon, which is great, but Dead Demons DDD Destruction is a great series if anyone gets a chance to read that. His art is beautiful. Urasawa, 20th Century Boys, amazing. There's so many. There's yeah, I could go on and on. It's the storytelling and manga is, I like to kind of classify my work as American action, manga, story pacing, and then kind of a more of a European story sentiment is how I would describe my work.
In what way, as far as the European sentiment?
Just some of the stories, the overall kind of cerebralness of some of the European books. I say like Mobius, or the more spiritual aspects that are put into it. Those types of, even like Inky Bayal and
Sure.
They're just kind of, some of the storylines are just off the wall, just kind of really weird, and I really love that. And there's a little bit of that in this and Sanvean. So I really kind of pulled. It just kind of pulled from everything that I loved, and that's what I wanted to do.
That's cool. Are you? I assume you're a heavy metal magazine fan.
I am, but that wasn't actually something I really was hugely into when I was younger. I mean, I discovered it more later as an adult, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. How did I miss out on this? But yeah.
Well, again, I think a lot of what you're describing too, the stuff that you like, doesn't have that, like you said, that corporate kind of need to, satisfy a focus group, as far as, like you said, picking the boxes and everything, rather than just, giving us something really fresh and interesting. In film, it's been hard because there have been things like the Luc Besson movie that started with a V, Valerian, a couple of years ago.
Valerian, yeah.
Yeah, the, high concept didn't do well at the box office. And I really think right now, with the success of the Marvel movies and Star Wars and the franchises and stuff, it is almost harder from a film standpoint to do good science fiction. Although on Amazon, The Expanse I thought was an excellent show, and I think it's a representation of the books. And that's what's kind of missing. My buddy Rob Burnett always says, and I think he's right, we're still getting so many great science fiction novels and ideas from the novels. And it's sad that they don't get represented more beyond the novels themselves, because there are things that would make excellent films and television shows that are high-minded. But, we don't get the chance to, for whatever reason, the studios aren't interested in making those movies. I don't know.
I mean, maybe they feel like they can't. Maybe they feel like it's like I feel like has been some series, like it's more like on Netflix or HBO Max or some of the others, where you do get a chance to see those things develop more. But it's a shame, because there are a lot of really great ideas out there.
I'll admit there's one show currently, and it's a reasonable budget. It doesn't bother me that it's a lower budget, but on Sci-Fi Channel, The Ark.
I haven't seen it.
I got to tell you, man, and it's cheese, but it's entertaining cheese, and it's really good. It's about a colony ship going to populate another planet, and some interesting things happen there, and there's a couple conspiracies and murders going on, and I found it I find it fun. It's not as high-minded as The Expanse or anything, but it's at least leans towards newer ideas rather than, hey, look, it's Obi-Wan. Hey, look, they got Jim Kirk's body and Picard, all that stuff. Right. And again, I'm a sucker for Star Trek and for Star Wars. I've watched it all. I liked Andor. I did think Andor.
I loved Andor. I thought Andor was amazing. It's funny because I had so many, friends of mine that are Star Wars fans, and I was surprised at how many of them were like, it was boring. I'm like, how? It's not boring. That was it was its own thing. I'm a big fan of the episodes 4, 5, and 6. Those are the most influential for me. But Andor was like, I'm like, this is how you tell a story. This is like, the characters were engaging. It was compelling. It was well shot. I mean, everything about it. I loved everything. Like, this is like that was like my number 4. That was like my favorite one behind those original 3, and it's its own flavor, so I almost feel like it's in its own little category.
Could not agree more. Yeah, it's what it's like to be a normal person living in the Star Wars universe, and, and which is good. And I think that was missing. Hey, we all love the Jedi magic, we all love the big spaceships and stuff, but it's like, no, this is really, and it really was almost a very political Star Wars show, and I love that about it too. No, I think we learned a lot about that galaxy, and that what's happening on all the different planets in ways that a lot of, certainly the sequels, were just member berries and whatever.
Well, I mean, they tried to over beat you over the head with it. It was like too overhanded, and it's like watching a news story. It's like you get a sense of what's going on, but you're not experiencing it. And those shows are meant to be experienced, not to be, So it's but Andor, like there's a place for it. I guess for me, the lesson in that is, like, in any universe, there's a place for any number of different stories if you do it right.
Who'd you work with on Star Wars? Were you the inker on your Star Wars stuff, or
no? I penciled and inked my own work. So I worked with Gabriel Hardman and Karina Becco, and so they were a writer artist team. So I would alternate. They would both write, but Gabriel would do 5 issues and pencil and ink, and then I would pencil and ink 5 issues. So we would kind of trade off back and forth, and they were great to work with. They were my favorite writing team to work with. It was the stories were interesting. They gave me a lot of room to do what I wanted to do, and they were very encouraging, especially being so young and coming in and being in my first kind of big job. So many thanks to the both of them for allowing that to happen.
They're 2 good friends of mine, so that's great to hear. I'm going to see Gabe at C2E2.
Yeah, I just saw he's going out there, so that's great.
Yep, and Karina's doing good, and I'm happy for her. I think she was at WonderCon last week, hanging out.
I think so. Yeah, she's doing all sorts of cool paleontology stuff too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Don. Gabe is amazing. Absolutely, man. No, his stuff is great. I'm so glad you got to work with them. And then for Winter Soldier, who'd you work with?
So I worked with pencilers. I worked with Michael Clark and Butch Geis.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. I love Butch's stuff. Yeah.
yeah, Butch is great. And then there was so Stefano started inking that series, and then he was getting pulled in a different direction, and so I came in. I was already assisting him, and then I tried out, and then they just gave me the job, and I took over the series after he left after the first issue or two. So
That's cool. That's great. And who was writing Winter Soldier back then?
that was Ed Brubaker.
Oh, was that? Oh, it was Ed stuff. That's great,
Yep.
man. There you go. God, you're working with one of my favorite
It was
people.
great too.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful to hear. Definitely. And Predator, who'd you work with on Predator?
Let's see.
It's like a quiz. I'm sorry, man.
Dan Abnett was
Wow.
Life and Death, and then it was Chris Warren. I think that's right. Chris Warren. It was the original artist on. So yeah, those were the two Predator experiences.
Okay, that's cool. Are you a Warhammer guy? Have you gotten into Warhammer at all?
No. I had a buddy of mine in college who was really into D&D, and he was like, "Dude, you got to come check out our thing." And so I went, and I hung out for the night and had some beers, and I was just like, "This is really cool, but this just isn't my thing."
Dude, that happened to me. High school. All these friends of mine were way into D&D, and I'm like, okay, I get it, and I can see the appeal, but no, not feeling it. All right, and it's so funny. A friend of mine is really excited. I think next weekend is the D&D movie, and instead of going,
is it? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think they're like, instead of going to C2E2, he's like, oh, I really want to see the D&D movie, and I'm like, I'll get to it. All right, that's fine. I respect that. But
the closest thing I got to was Elden Ring that came out recently. It's like I don't think that's a totally different world. I know that, but it's like as far as getting into that kind of realm, I love that game. So I know maybe there's hope for me in the D&D world. I don't know.
Are there sci-fi role playing games that appeal to you at all, either from an art standpoint or
no? I mean, in all honesty, it's a time thing.
Sure,
so
Master Time suck. Yes.
So for me, I think is great, but especially the last year or two, most of my energy has just been like literally all about this project, researching, writing, kind of getting everything kind of geared up to where I wanted it to be. And then when I'm not doing that, I still write. So I get to get out and write as much as I'd like to. And so when I get a chance, I like to get out and go writing for, a day on a weekend or something like that. So or go socialize. I mean, it's like I used to have a studio pre-pandemic. I had a studio I shared with a few people, and that was great because we had a chance to at least kind of shoot the shit and do all that. But pandemic happened, and the area where the studio was at, like no one was going down. There's no place to eat because all the restaurants were closed. And so I was like, you know what? Like I don't know how long this is going to go on for. And I had an opportunity in the apartment building where I was living to space opened up to get quite a bit bigger space for paying less than what I was paying for my apartment in the studio downtown. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So yeah, I need to get out and socialize. So when I'm not working, I try to get out and just be a normal human being. Otherwise I would go insane. Good
for you, man. No, I'm truly excited for C2E2 this weekend just to see everybody and socialize. And yeah, man, we're still coming out of this, and it's going to take a while. We're not back to normal yet, and who knows if we ever will be normal again. I don't know. Yeah,
hopefully.
Bummer. I know. No, that's fantastic. Also, I should mention that there's still plenty of room as far as stretch goals and things that you've got going on. Again, you're only halfway to your goal, and it's if people want to buy the digital book or the hard copy of the book, $20.
Yep.
Which I think is pretty reasonable for what you're giving. And then here, that's the digital bundle there. And I guess that's cool. You got a postcard set.
Yep.
So that's cool. And then the physical book. And then we get into as we get higher and stuff. You got I love that you've got original art
Yes.
that you're doing and stuff. So yeah, and hey, listen, you're a beautiful artist, man. Good for you. But yeah, $500 you can get a personalized copy of Sanvean #1, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
and I'm not going to just do like a little head sketch on it. I will do a fully rendered. I mean, my whole thing with the pricing on my tiers, especially on the commission tiers, is I've got my normal my set prices with Mark, and that's kind of stuff without a or whatever. If you want more, it costs more. But with this, it's like if you're going to back me behind something that is my passion project, something I feel really passionate, that's my thing. I'm going to take the time. If you pledge at that tier, I'm going to sit down and I'm like the example that's on there. I'm going to do a full fledged, spend a day on it or over how long it takes to do a good drawing for you because I really do appreciate. It's harder and harder to live these days, and I know that people don't have the income that they used to. So I want to make it worth your while. And if you believe in me and believe in my work, then and you pledge at those tiers, then I'm gonna work with you and give you the best possible, art that I can.
When will we see? When will patrons of your Kickstarter expect to get the first book here?
Right now, I'm looking at probably September. By the time that I get done
Great.
with all of so most of the book is done. Like overall book is done. I'm finishing up. It's entirely laid out. I've got probably it sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. I've got about 50 pages to finish, but they're again, like I said, they're laid out. The dialogue's there. So I'll do that, and then getting the commissions and stuff done, and all the packaging and everything all together. Then that is that's all gonna I feel like September. It might even be before then, but I just wanted to give myself an extra month just in case.
Do you have conventions or store signings you plan to do? There is a tier for store owners to be able to
Right.
get multiple copies for their store and everything, and I absolutely recommend that because again, it looks great, and we need more sci-fi. We need more good sci-fi out there, man. So, but are you planning on store signings and conventions?
First convention this year will probably be in New York, where I actually might sit down and do something. I might, if it seems like it makes sense, I might make an appearance at San Diego, stop by and kind of see stuff. But next year will probably be the year that I really kind of push it hard and really do the circuit.
Understood, dude. I'm telling you, Sanvean looks amazing, and I'm happy to talk about it. And again, everybody, there are still about I want to say 24 days left in the campaign.
24.
24 as of this recording. So if you're watching us live on video, then you got 24 days. A little bit less if you're catching the audio. But hey, man, I'm serious. Mark Hay has been good to me over the years, and I'm glad he made me aware of you and this book. And I'm happy to help you promote it, everybody. So go to Kickstarter and look up Sanvean, which is Sanvean for the audio audience, and look for Brian Thies. This is excellent, man.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for coming on, man. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you talking to us today about the book and about everything else you've been doing. And hey, you got Marvel Unlimited. You can catch the Winter Soldier stuff that Brian did with Ed, and that's cool. And yeah, reach back. The Star Wars stuff, was that when Dark Horse still had the license, or was it?
It was when Dark Horse had the license, but I think it's all over at Marvel now.
Cool. Well, there you go. I should look. I got to see if that's on my Marvel Unlimited as well. But yeah, Sanvean, everybody, really. No, if you like, again, you see the influences of the manga in his science fiction and everything, in his art. I think it looks fantastic. So until our next episode, I hope everybody enjoyed today's conversation. Until next time, everybody just stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.